Larry Krueger and Ryan Smith right outside Levi's Stadium after day one of training camp. Well, Ryan, day one in the books. The big story today was Trey Lance, of course.
He looked great.
Everybody wanted to see Trey. What'd you think?
Honestly, it's hard to tell, in these situations, but it just doesn't, it seems like he's got touch on his passes. I wasn't seeing any wobbles. I was seeing spirals. I was seeing accurate, and we'll upload some videos of it later. Just everything was pinpoint. God, especially next to Purdy, and he looked incredible. He had a scramble. So yeah, it's Trey's team, and that's what Ayuk was saying. That's what all these guys are saying. It's Trey's team, and God, it's kind of the sky's the limit.
Yeah, he looked good. There are a lot of people talking about his accuracy. If today's practice is any indication, I don't think accuracy is going to be a problem for Trey.
No.
Everything was pretty much on the money, on time. Granted, it's practice. It's hard to discern, what on time really means out here. But there weren't a bunch of balls that hit the turf. There wasn't throws that were high, low, behind receivers. He looked pretty locked in.
He looked locked in. I think this, it's another interesting thing. Al-Shaair, was it Al-Shaair who said that we have the best defense in the NFL?
Yeah.
That was awesome. And that, I'm sorry to jump from Lance to the defense, but that was another big takeaway I had is these boys are confident. Freaking Fred Warner's out there. We can kind of hear him. He's talking crap to Ayuk, and he's just a field general out there. So yeah, and who else of the kind of more low-key people, who would you say really stood out to you today?
Well, what stood out to me is just the 49ers speed. They had added speed on offense, and you see it really in three guys. Jordan Matthews at tight end, who's a converted wide receiver. He's moving really well.
People will not believe that. Unless you're here to see it, it's hard to describe, but he is moving, he's moving so fast, and he's an older dude. And
right. He's had some experience at wide receiver, but now he's transitioning to tight end. He's about 235 pounds, and he was moving well. Then you had Danny Gray at receiver and Ty Davis-Price at running back. And you've got three weapons there that are all speed, Ty Davis-Price has some size to him as well, but you added three elements to your game that are all speed-related elements, and I think it's going to create a lot of space.
Yeah, honestly, also McLeod. Is that Rodney McLeod?
No, it was
Ray McLeod.
Ray McLeod.
Ray McLeod. God, this is the perfect opportunity for a speedster like him. Not in an in-game situation, but they were running stuff with him. Seemingly with the first team offense. Granted, Deebo's not out there, but I think he's going to get some action. How creative Shanahan is. I always think back to that Marquise Goodwin kind of weird play where he just ran straight. he just ran straight down the field. Still don't quite know what he was going for there, but I love Shanahan with more speed. It's just always going to be fun.
Well, it gives the Niners kind of more of a dynamic look offensively to have, Ray McLeod. Now you add, guys like Danny Gray and Jordan Matthews as a tight end, and Ty Davis-Price gives him another back with size who also has speed. So there's that element. And then there was two guys, the first day of camp, a big element of the first day of camp is key guys, how good a shape are certain guys in.
Yeah.
The two guys that really stood out to me, one didn't even practice, and that was Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. There was some question, what kind of shape would those two guys show up in? I thought Ayuk was in very good shape. Deebo did not practice, but you can tell he looks great. He's lean and mean and really looks like he got real serious in the last month about his conditioning.
And you know what? Another thing going back to the press conferences, Ayuk brought up I think somebody said hey, do you feel kind of an increased sense of needing to be a leader with Deebo not out there? Of course he said yes, but he also said immediately kind of shut that down Deebo's not playing, but he's out there still. He's still coaching. He's engaged. He's and you're watching him. He's he's fired up. He's locked in. So I think, I think our Deebo worries are I think they're over. I think we're going to figure this thing out. That's the vibe I'm getting.
Well, there was a lot of question. Would there be a Deebo Samuel hold out?
Yeah.
What you're really seeing is a hold in. That he's here. he's attending meetings. He's got his sweats on, but he's not going to take the field and risk anything until he gets that contract extension inked. First, you would expect a Jimmy Garoppolo trade to happen. Garoppolo was here today, according to the reports. He was here in the morning and threw and then left. Essentially, he's no longer on the team, except for the final, is he going to be traded, is he going to be released? But according to Kyle Shanahan, he was here today, he threw and then departed. He did take his physical yesterday and he passed his physical. So
that's great.
He is ready to be traded at any point if somebody gives the 49ers whatever it is that they seek in compensation.
And I brought it up a little bit to you out on the field. I don't know what to make of these betting markets with they can be so heavily influenced by just like one big bet or whatever. But the betting markets are all saying Cleveland, but then there's some weird teams like the Lions. That I think the Lions were number 2 the last time I checked, and we were talking about it. Like, how would that would? I don't even understand how that could possibly happen. They don't have the cap space. They've got Jared Goff. Like, what? It's going to be like the Spider-Man meme where they're both pointing at each other. Like, hey, it's a kind of a lateral move to go from Goff to Jimmy G. So, yeah, I don't know where he would go if he didn't go to Cleveland.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the unknown. We don't know where he's going to go. We probably do know that he's going to go.
Yeah.
But as far as where he's going to go, that's still up in the question, up for the debate. One other official news that did come down today is the 49ers did officially release Dee Ford.
Yep.
And I don't know how 49er fans view that transaction. John Lynch traded a second-round pick for Dee Ford. He did have one phenomenal season and helped the 49ers go to the Super Bowl. And since that point, he's really been a disappointment as far as trying to stay on the field. His body just would never quite let him get out there for any extended period of time. I guess overall, you'd have to say it was not a win for the 49ers because they didn't get any longevity out of what amounted to a second-round pick. But overall, now that Dee Ford's not in camp, that means that the other young defensive ends, Jordan Willis, the second-round pick Drake Jackson, Kamoko Toure, a number of these guys are going to be kind of thrust into the limelight here.
Yeah.
Who can step up as that Arden Key-like secondary pass rusher to Nick Bosa on the other side? Samson Ebukam, by the way, ran with the ones opposite Bosa on that first-team D-line.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's significant, and I think that is one of the biggest storylines to watch, is especially with Dee Ford. I mean, the release of Dee Ford, of course, I think we all kind of felt like, it's a big contract and whatnot, but, it kind of feels like that's something you do, if you think that you have like the next guy to step up and be opposite Bosa. But also maybe they just want to open competition and, get Dee Ford out of there and then see what happens between all the young guys. It is kind of crazy. Like, they traded a second rounder for him, and then they took Drake Jackson with a second rounder. I have to say, I thought his body looked pretty good. And he was out there. He seems extremely raw. Like, he was kind of just bulldozing his way into the line, not necessarily. You didn't see much technical nuance, especially compared to like a Bosa coming out of college. So, yeah, I think that's a big one to watch, is who is going to be that opposite guy to Nick Bosa.
We didn't see Trent Williams today. Trent Williams was excused. He had a family deal that he was tending to, so he wasn't out there. That's typical for NFL teams.
Yeah.
There's a few players that, the head coach is totally fine, as we would describe, slow playing in camp. And Trent Williams definitely fits that mold.
100%. Number one, what was he? The number one rated player in PFF, or was it
number one rated
also?
Offensive lineman in the NFL?
Yeah. I mean, God, that's another what if. I just always think, like, what if Trent Williams was a little bit healthier in that Rams game? Because that was, he even came out and said, I don't know if I should have even been out there. He was hurt, and he did not look like Trent Williams. But man, we have so many blue chippers. That's one thing I've noticed. It's like we've got a blue chipper pretty much in every group. we got a blue chipper wide receiver in Deebo. We got a blue chipper linebacker in Warner. We got a blue chip defensive lineman or D end and Nick Bosa. I think we have a blue chip D tackle, or at least verge of blue chip with Armstead. I think Armstead's being completely slept on. I think Armstead had a better year than Buckner last year. And I know people like to, that was a bit, an early reaction was like, why'd we trade Buckner? I thought Armstead was freaking awesome last year. Once they put him inside, he was awesome. He's a blue chipper. At safety, cornerback, that's kind of what we're waiting to see is like, what's going to be, who's going to be a blue chipper amongst the safety group? Is Humfunga going to take a massive step? By the way, he's just awesome to watch. He's awesome to watch.
Talanoa,
yeah,
yep.
And it's like we've got blue chippers all over the roster, and it's fun because I feel like there's going to be some more guys emerge this year. Really
we need to break Ryan of his we. It's they.
Oh my God.
They have blue chippers. They have blue chippers, not we have blue chippers. But one other thing I thought was kind of interesting today is, you had nobody who, you didn't have anybody go down in practice.
No.
Now, we did see Azeez Al-Shaair on the turf for a few seconds.
Yeah.
We talked to him after practice. He said he just got the wind knocked out of him.
Yeah.
So, that's really the thing that you're looking for in training camp is you want to get your work done and you don't want to lose anybody to injury. And unless we hear otherwise tomorrow morning, they got through at least the first day of training camp totally unscathed, as the only guy who really went down was Al-Shaair, and we found out he just got the wind knocked out of him. So
his big elbow brace got hit into his stomach or something.
Right. So at least, hey, one day of practice in the books and nobody got hurt. So that's a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And what'd you feel about just the vibe around the team this year?
Well, I just think there's a lot of hope.
There's a lot of hope.
I think it's weird because yes, Trey is young and he's in his first year as a starter. And most quarterbacks in their first year don't have the expectations that this franchise has. Yeah. This franchise is hoping to go to the Super Bowl. I don't know if they're expecting to go to the Super Bowl, but I think they're hoping to go to the Super Bowl. And even that's high hopes when you're leaning on a rookie / second year quarterback. So that is going to be kind of like one of the consistent subplots this year is, are the 49ers serious about being a Super Bowl contender and serious about Trey Lance as their number one? I think we've gotten that answer already.
Yeah.
They are serious about having Trey Lance as their starter, and they're serious about going to the Super Bowl. We'll see if they can do it. Yeah,
and it's not like they brought in anybody that's, even a Tyrod Taylor, I guess you could maybe make an argument, well, I don't know, maybe, if Trey struggles a little, maybe you bring in Tyrod, we don't have, I think they purposefully cleared the room of any competition. They said, you know what, Trey, we're going to live and die by your mistake. Well, not live and die, but we have enough, they have enough help throughout. I'm going to have to bleep all these out. They have enough help throughout the rest of the roster to kind of carry him along throughout the season. And then, I'm just hoping by the end of the year, towards the end of the year, the last 4 or 5 games, he's kind of figured it out and he's got momentum building into the playoffs. And then who knows, maybe he shows up on a big stage and again, it's hope. It's very different than when, we are covering the San Francisco Giants where, there's almost no hope. there's no bright future.
The Giants have some issues. One last thing. I thought the Emmanuel Moseley interview after practice was revealing as well. Moseley is one of the longest tenured players on the 49ers, and he was talking very positively about Samuel Womack.
Yeah.
One of the key guys that the 49ers lost in the secondary was K'Wan Williams. Williams is one of the best nickel corners in the NFL. We saw a lot of the Toledo rookie today, Samuel Womack, who was a 5th-round draft choice, I believe, out of Toledo. He was playing that nickel, and then after the practice, Emmanuel Moseley said he was very impressed by Womack. That's going to be an interesting one right there because that nickel corner is a very tough role. It's usually manned by a veteran player, but Womack might be the right guy in the right place at the right time. and he looked good according to Emmanuel Mosley in his first practice, and I thought he looked good as well. So if there was a surprise positive today, it might have been the play of Samuel Womack at nickel corner.
Yeah, and just seeing the guy, he's got the body of just to be an awesome corner. Those, like, I think I told you, like, it looks like his arms are so long, like he could just like scratch his knee. Like, it's he looks like he really has a chance to be a stud, and that he's not, he's kind of just ready for the moment. So that's great. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up is, we were chatting a little with Kyle Posey, and he was talking about, Danny Gray, who I think everyone, in the 49ers organization, fans, I think everyone's excited for him. I mean, the prospects of having a burner like that. And he was kind of taking it to Ambry Thomas. And Ambry Thomas, another guy that everyone keeps hope for, and he's got the tools, and sometimes he does well, but apparently I didn't see a ton of it, but from what I heard, there was some face mat or grabbing around the neck, and Danny Gray was kind of roasting the guy.
Well, it's an interesting time for sure, because you don't know how much credence to put into the early practices, but you've got some young talent here, you've got some veteran talent here, and it's kind of an exciting time for the 49ers. I thought the one thing about Gray that stood out to me was that one drill where they're kind of mocking up beating the jam at the line of scrimmage. And Gray, there's two ways to beat the jam: strength and quickness. And he's got unbelievable quickness. And so, rookie receivers that don't have a lot of strength a lot of times get hemmed up at the line of scrimmage. They can't get off the line because of the jam and how physical the DBs are. What we saw today in practice, at least in some of the drills, was Danny Gray's quickness allows him to beat the jam. And that bodes well for him, playing early on in the year, because if he can get off the line of scrimmage, he ran 4.33, but he plays probably in the 4.2s. That's a player the 49ers really have not had since Ted Ginn was here during the Jim Harbaugh era. So a lot of positives on day one for sure.
Yeah, and to that, Marquise Goodwin, another guy who's always tantalizing because of the Olympic speed. I always felt he is super fast, but I never felt like his speed transition to the field the way like a Tyreek Hill. I don't know who'd win in a 40 between the two of them, but Tyreek Hill is so much different on the field than Marquise Goodwin, despite the 40 time, and that's what you feel like we were seeing out of Danny Gray. He looks football fast.
Yeah, there's stopwatch speed, there's track speed, there's functional speed.
Yeah,
Danny Gray for sure has functional speed. For Ryan Smith, I'm Larry Kruger. That's day one of training camp from Santa Clara. We'll be back tomorrow with more.
Absolutely.